Everybody, welcome into the Irish NFL show. It is the end of May. We're getting towards the June bank holidays. I think we have a bank holiday next. I don't even know. It depends where you are. If you're up with me, you've got a couple of bank holidays. These boys have got a bank holiday. Who knows? We have a wee bank holiday special. We are presented by a number of esteemed sponsors. First off, Trust Gaming. Trust Gaming is the best gaming gear you can get on a budget or on any budget. Check out Trust Gaming on Instagram for more details. We're also presented by our friends over at Mini Arcade Systems. They have the best quality arcade machines in Ireland. Check them out by Googling or going on Instagram and searching in Mini Arcade Systems. And we're also presented by the Aer Lingus College Football Classic. We're gonna release the kickoff time for this game on August 27th. In a minute, you can get tickets now. Ticketmaster.ie/touchdown Dublin. I've got these boys in the wrong order here. Like, this is how awake I am this week. Colin Cronin, Brian O'Leary, welcome in, lads. Colin, happy bank holiday? No? It's not a bank
Not
holiday, is it yet?
not quite yet. Coming up at the start of June. So yeah, we got that extra one in March. I wish we had it at
Wish I had
the.
that extra bank holiday in March, but yeah.
Yeah,
Not
well,
bad at all.
you've got other ones for other reasons.
Oh, let's
Um,
let's not go there.
that's a, yeah, yeah.
Brian, how are you? Good?
I'm good, Michael. I'm good. Yeah, you're going to declare that kickoff time. I think we have some
Yeah,
breaking
let's
news.
let's start it off. So obviously, brilliant to have College Football Ireland involved with the show. Really appreciate the support. Great to also help support the local game as well, and it's great to have a partnership with the people over at College Football Ireland. We can reveal this week the game between Northwestern and Nebraska on Saturday, the 27th of August, is kicking off at 5:30 in the evening Irish time. I like it. I've had people on Twitter asking me, is there a beer bus coming from Belfast and up? And am I going to book one? I love it, lads. I mean, you don't really care if it was on at 12 at night or 1 in the afternoon. You can walk home. You just sweet. But
That's
it's
it.
a column. It's a nice time. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it definitely is better than it has been for the last few times. Hopefully, the weather. Every time I've gone to the college game recently, so fingers crossed. Oh, it sounds perfect. August, 5:30 on a Saturday, and yeah, a lovely build up. Might allow for some college type tailgating.
And it might allow for a night out afterwards. So Colin is already getting concerned.
There's no way that's happening. I'll tell you why. Because we have a season to start the 2 weeks after that. We're in prep mode then. I'm Brian. I'm pumped for this game. It's going to be televised on Fox nationally in the US, and we have no idea who's showing it here. You would think domestically, maybe
BT
maybe
Sport,
Virgin
I
Media,
imagine.
RT, or TG Car would show it, or I'm being serious. Like domestically, like they would have in the local markets. We'll try and find that out. Maybe BT. I'm not sure. Brian.
BTSBN, I'd imagine, at that time in the evening, we'll have it. I am excited for the game, Michael, genuinely, because it will be only a couple of weeks before the NFL season starts. And at that stage, we'll have been starved of NFL, and we'll probably be watching some very poor NFL preseason games where players from the starters won't be in any of the games. So it will be good to see real competitive action. And it's a top 10 college game. So, yeah, why wouldn't you be excited? Great game. I think it's a great kickoff time for people. It allows people who are down the country who want to get to the game to travel up. They don't have to be leaving at the crack of dawn to get up for the game. I think it's a perfect time, and people within reason can get home at a reasonable hour afterwards. So yeah, it's a perfect fit.
And to the three people who have DM'd me in the last 45 minutes, I'm going to contact TransLink this week and try and get trains to Belfast and Portadown after 10 o'clock. That's the only thing, but we'll try and get an Irish NFL show bus to Dundalk, Belfast,
Just make
and
sure
the
you don't
Brian's house
drink.
as well.
You just don't drink on that bus on the way down, Michael, because we may need you for some kind of Irish NFL show, college special on the day at the stadium, hopefully.
The toll bridge would be great crack then that day. No, here, looking forward to it. And obviously a thanks to our sponsors, the Aer Lingus College Football Classic. As we said at the start of the show, ticketmaster.ie/touchdown Dublin. You now know the time. You can go to the game, go for a night out after in Dublin, or hop up in the bus with me after. More to come on that as well. Talking about pre-season games, Colin, one guy that could potentially be playing in the pre-season is Colin Kaepernick. The Raiders have had an interesting week, haven't they? And also a former Raider in Gruden's had an interesting week. Do you think, first off, Colin could be playing? Apparently, he's impressed, which impresses me because the last time Colin Kaepernick was playing in NFL down, I had a full head of hair.
Wayne Rooney may have had that as well. Look, Kaepernick, it makes a lot of sense, I think, for the Raiders in some respects, right? Mariota moved on. They like to bring somebody in to mix it up a little bit. Kaepernick offers you that running threat. So they're working him out. And I think in fairness to the Raiders, we have talked about it time and again on this show. If there's a franchise that is committed to diversity, to giving people second chances, in this case, it's the second chance after the league did what the league did. Then it is the Raiders. So, it's an interesting story. There's still a long way to go for him to actually make a roster. But it is obviously a step in the right direction that he had a workout. Apparently it was impressive, but this is still May, and as we have said, real football is many months away.
He also has a long-standing relationship with the son of the guest we have on our show tonight, which is Michael Lombardi, and his son is now the offensive coordinator with the Raiders. They have a relationship from the time in San Francisco, so I can see why it would make sense to someone there that has a personal relationship with him more so than the football side of things. It makes sense in a way, because if you look at what the Raiders did last year with Mariota, he's obviously moved on to the Falcons now and will likely start there. But they ran a lot of kind of schemes where they would take Derek Carr out again and bring him in for like a run pass option, as Colin touched on there. So Kaepernick might be an ideal fit to do that. Will he be there? I'm not sure. Like it's easy to be giving these guys opportunities in May, but come August, I'd imagine it's very much light touch. There's no playbooks being discussed or anything. It's very much gathering how much shape he's in. And if you saw what he did at that kind of spring training day with Michigan, he looked like he was in good shape and seemed to be throwing the ball around well. But it's a very different, as we've seen with these rookies doing the day specials. It's very different to throw a ball, with no one around you, as opposed to when you're playing a real game in the NFL. So it could be interesting to see how it plays out. But interesting week for the Raiders in general.
I personally think that Colin Kaepernick could walk into 2 or 3 teams and become at least their number 2 backup quarterback.
I would agree with you there, Michael. I would tend to agree with you on that.
Yeah, and I don't want to start naming teams, but maybe we'll do this next week or peak off season. If it does, maybe he'll impress a team and he'll sign with a team by the time this goes out. This is being recorded on a Thursday, for example, so knowing Colin, try not to do it over the next few days. We have an announcement to make. Yeah, are we going to do this now? Yeah, Colin, are we going to do it now?
Sure.
Yeah, let's do it now. Right, we have a big announcement to make. People have been messaging us flat out in regards to Mark Cockerell. I always knew he was popular, but I didn't think he was this popular. Colin, do you want to tell everyone the incredible news and big news for this show that I know people are so just latching on to at the minute? They want to know what's going on with Mark. Where is Mark?
Well, the good news for Mark is essentially work commitments mean that Mark will no longer be able to present on the show. Mark is still involved and will be in the background, which is good to have Mark's keen legal eyes on contracts and agreements. But with the return of travel and with Mark being in the role that he's in, I think he has been on 3 different continents over the last week alone. So the reality is that it just wasn't possible for him to continue. Maybe we'll see. He might pop up for a guest appearance during the playoffs if that happens. But it's going to be the 3 amigos going forward on the Irish NFL show, and obviously we will still keep in touch with Mark, and we want to wish him the very best.
What I would say is I think most people who watch the show would be very much aware of the commitment that we have to put into doing the show, because it's not a case of just rocking up on a Thursday or a Sunday or a Monday during the season and just doing the show. That there is a lot of work that's done in the background to make things work, and Mark's always been heavily involved in that. So from a personal standpoint, it's not just the fact that Mark is leaving. Like, we're all get on very well outside of doing the show. So he's become quite a good friend to us all. So it's a sad moment in a way, Mike. It's a bit like, I was thinking, what would it be like? Would it was like when Fergie left United? For you, it was probably when Westlife broke up the first time around.
Dublin didn't win 10 in a row. I mean, we keep going here. For the weekend, isn't it? Next weekend. Yeah, like it's the end of an era. Like and what you boys is I can only take that and multiply it by 100. Yeah, like we've all been good mates outside of this, and it's great that we're delighted Mark can continue on in a more external role, and he may not be on the screen, and he certainly won't be on here during the playoffs because the Patriots aren't getting anywhere near the playoffs, lads, which we can talk about soon. But yeah, like obviously wishing Mark the very very best. Like the show. Wouldn't be where it is today without his help and his guidance, not just on the screen but off the screen. I'm not going to miss the musical tones on a Friday Night Live or ABBA references. I probably will miss them, to be honest with you. But no, it's definitely the end of the year for this show. But it's the start of a new one. So
And
yeah,
now
like obviously Mark the very best.
it's great that Colin has already tagged him as now a special guest coming on. So that's good for Mark. He's the special one.
It's going to be good fun. I can't wait to see that show. I'm going to miss. Like I have to say now, if there was maybe 2 or 3 weeks last year where Mark jumped on the hot seat hosting this, and it was definitely good fun to hear his soothing tones. So I'm wishing Mark all the best. And I mean, you'll like people listening to this or watching this, you'll probably see him in a meetup in week 1 or at a game in London. So he's still here. He's just not on the screen. So obviously, our very best to Mark and his family. And how do we continue the show now? I mean, is that it? Is that Colin?
Well, no, because there is the delightful news from the sadness of Mark, no longer being a presenter on the show. There is the great news that our long nightmare may be finally coming to an end. The Pro Bowl, the league might at long last put it out of its misery and get rid of what has just become an eyesore. It is absolutely pointless. The reason sport is interesting is intensity. The Pro Bowl is the absolute antithesis of that. They should have literally anything else would be better. It's the reason that preseason it isn't that interesting. I mean, obviously for guys trying to make the roster, it's really important. But the whole reason you watch games is that intensity, and that does not exist in the Pro Bowl. So I would definitely be an advocate of literally anything else.
Brian, instead of the Pro Bowl, and there has been like a lot of talk about this week. I mean, the NFL apparently want to do like skill stuff, right? What about like what the GA is doing now with that like backwards cup, like the Tatalion Cup, where the crap counties? I'm only joking. Where like the counties that aren't maybe as competitive as like the top counties are at the moment go into like, why not like put the teams that don't qualify for the playoffs in like a crazy knockout cup or something in January for the crack? Like the Giants, for example, could go in as favourites for like the B section. Like it's like saying about splitting Dublin in two or whatever. In all seriousness, it's so easy. Just have the first seed against the second seed for the draft. The second pick for the draft, and just make them play to the death for the first pick. It's not that hard. Put it the Sunday before the Super Bowl. I'd watch it.
Why do anything? Just kill it all together.
No, do it for the crack.
I'll tell you what they should do. You want to do something really good that week? Put the Senior Bowl on proper television, because it's only on NFL Network. The game is played that weekend. I think it's played on the Saturday, and because the Pro Bowl's on a Sunday. Kill the Pro Bowl, put the Senior Bowl in a good prime time slot on a Sunday, and let people see the players that are going to get drafted come April. Because we spoke about it after we did our draft special, reviewing the draft, and the amount of percentages, I think it was high up in the 60-70% of players that were drafted this year who were attended and played in the Senior Bowl. It shows the importance of the game. We've had Jim Nagy on doing great work there. It would only build the importance of that week by putting it on proper primetime television and kill the draft off, kill the Pro Bowl altogether. Colin was right. I mean, the 2 week gap between, for every fan of the NFL, the 2 week gap between the championship games and the Super Bowl is tough going, bearing in mind even though the last game is coming for the season. And then you switch on the Pro Bowl and it's just absolutely horrendous. And you just say, what's the point? What is the point? What about
the college game, Brian? What about putting the national championship game that Sunday before the Super Bowl? Like, just do that.
That's you know what, Michael? That trumps what I said. That's perfect.
But then they're all like, there's a 4 week gap. I don't care. Like, none of us lads here genuinely and I try to watch college football on Saturday. How are you supposed to watch United losing at lunchtime, the 3:00 kickoffs, Saturday night football, and then all the college, and persuade your wife to stay with you by Sunday when the NFL starts? We can't do it. So it would be great for people here if we could watch the college game on the
throw in parents with children on top of that.
Me and Colin don't have to worry about that. Colin.
Yet.
Right. Anyway, can I just first off, like, we're gonna go AOB here, right? This has been a crack so far. I want to thank everyone that watched or listened to Mickey Loomis last week.
Yeah.
Thank Jeff Duncan for sharing it. Thanks to all the love on New Orleans Saints Reddit for all the comments as well. Great to talk to Mickey. And thank you very much to the Saints for the opportunity to chat to Mickey and hopefully chat to you again soon, maybe in London. Colin, have you any other business that you want to talk about this week? Obviously, we're getting to the point now where we're starting to enter maybe not the quiet part of the season, but it's a bit more quiet.
Well, it's a little bit quieter, but there's plenty of stuff I think going on off the field, and the Dan Snyder stuff is probably the one. We spoke to Peter King about it. We spoke to Rappaport about it, and it is playing out. Obviously, we have an owners meeting coming up. When you see owners say things like they're counting the votes, I think that is pretty telling. The reality is that once the accusations were out there that he stiffed teams on money, the league will put up with an awful lot, especially from owners. We know that. We have seen that time and time and time again, past, present, and I'm sure that will be the case well into the future. But when you stiff the other owners on money, oh, you're not going to be around for too long. I think Danny Snyder's days are numbered as the owner of the Washington Commanders, whether it happens right now or in the not too distant future. But that is certainly one to keep an eye on, because the Broncos are probably going to sell pretty shortly for somewhere in the region of 5 to 6 billion. That record might last for all that long if the Commanders go on the market immediately afterwards.
Michael, Chucky the doll, a lot of people were glad to see the back of
I was
that
wondering where I was
particular
going for a minute.
that film, that doll. You know, a lot of people were glad to see the back of that doll throughout the years. And Gruden is a bit like that doll. Well, he looks exactly like that doll. And Gruden has cropped up this week, and the NFL want him to just move off into the background and never to be seen again. But I don't know if people had an opportunity to read up on what's happened this week, but the NFL tried to dismiss his case that he was wrongfully dismissed by the Raiders and that they purposely leaked out the emails. And it looks like he's going to get his day in the courts because the NFL haven't won the early phase of this conversation. And he came out very happy with the outcome and said, "Great to be back in Vegas. Go Raiders. I'll see you all soon." So he's not going. If Mark was here now, God, he hasn't died now, but if he was here with us,
It's not awake, like.
he
I
would
mean,
be
we're not going
saying,
to start singing in a
he
minute.
would be using one of his poetic lines to say, "Gone into the night" or "Gone into the darkness," whatever that particular line was. But Gruden is going to be around for a little bit longer, but you might not see him on the sidelines. We'll certainly see him in the news. So interesting subplot ahead over the coming months on that side of things.
Here's Johnny, indeed. Obviously, folks, my AOB, I'll look at the general stuff. I want to thank everyone that's been on our social media channels over the last 2 or 3 weeks, especially in regards to the local game. A lot of games taking place this weekend have taken place today. The Belfast Trojans had their home opener today. I'm going to try and get up to that at Harlequins over the next few weeks. Going to try and get these boys up the M1, see if that works. See if we can get past Newry with some of these lads here, see the crack. A couple of things. Brian's PSG top that he's wearing will be available in the store on Monday. And we hope to maybe have an opportunity for people to get tickets for the Tottenham games. We hope to have more information on that over the next few weeks, specifically the Green Bay game, which apparently is a hen's teeth. Not because of the Giants, Brian, because of the Green Bay Packers. I'm only joking. But more to come on that. Please watch this space. So we'll see what happens. And yeah, that's all I have. Colin, do you want to introduce this week's guest? Or?
Yeah, this week's guest is a good friend of the show, and as Brian mentioned earlier, his son is now the offensive coordinator with the Las Vegas Raiders. It is the one and only. He certainly has some Irish heritage because the man is a fantastic storyteller. We are delighted to welcome Michael Lombardi back to the Irish NFL show.
Stadium this August to face the Nebraska Cornhuskers football team in the Aer Lingus College Football Classic.
The Aer Lingus Classic is just a few months away.
Everybody's been waiting for this.
It'll be great. We're looking forward to getting everyone over.
That we are going to see a football game in Dublin.
Well, a remarkable trip and an opportunity coming up.
Go Wildcats!
Go Wildcats!
Go Big Red.
Folks, great to welcome our guest this week to the Irish NFL show, former NFL executive who has his very own podcast, the GM Shuffle, writes articles for the Daily Coach, involved with VSIN.com. Now the third time for him to join us, very supportive, really appreciate it. Michael Lombardi, a warm welcome back.
Thank you much. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's always good to do that. I was out at VSIN about right at the draft, and the owner of the South Point Hotel, Michael Gahn is his name. He has a home in, I don't remember the name, but it's an Irish town that you all vacation in along the sea. I forget the name of the town, but it's a popular vacation spot. And he goes over there, and I was telling him about your podcast, and I was telling him about how you guys love American football, and the South Point's an incredible venue. But I forget the name of the town, damn it. But he goes over there and he says he just watches it rain all the time because he lives in Vegas where it never rains.
It does rain here a lot. I'm not going to lie. That's one thing it's one thing that hasn't changed here, Michael. Before you even get into this, has been a crazy few months, hasn't it? Have you ever seen an off season like this before?
No, I mean, we say that every year, but I think more than ever, I think desperation runs hot now. You know, there's Bruce Springsteen in one of his songs. He says, "Sometimes I can't tell my courage from my desperation." And I think this offseason is symbolic of that. It means teams are making what appears to be somewhat desperate moves, and they probably think they're being courageous. I mean, the whole notion that these quarterbacks were first-round quarterbacks going into the draft was ridiculous. But yet the media has spun that story in that direction. So, you know, and you take one and all of a sudden you think you have your answer and you don't.
Michael, you touched on this on the GM Shuffle in recent weeks, but this is the time of year where everybody's in the best shape of their life. Everybody's, the new schemes are settling in, and hope springs eternal. For you, who has genuine hope, and who maybe has, in terms of teams who maybe weren't so good last year, and whose hope is desperately misguided?
That's a great question. I think, to me, Seattle's misguided with hoping that Geno Smith or Drew Lock can be the starting quarterback. I think they need to evaluate that, because I think they could be a better team. They were 7-10 last year. I think they could be vastly improved if they could get some stability at quarterback. But I would be very concerned going into the season with Geno Smith or Drew Lock. So, I don't care what they look like in camp. I can't imagine that come game time, that's all going to transpire and be really good. I mean, look, I think Miami's got a lot of great skill players. Whether Tua can play and be effective, you're never going to hear a bad word about Tua coming out of Miami. I mean, they're programmed to do that down there. How about when they put that video out of him throwing the ball deep down the field and Tyreek Hill had almost fair? It looked like the infield fly rule in baseball. It was like he had to stand there and wait for it. But we're never going to hear anything negative. So I'm more of in a wait and see mode. I don't believe any of the positivity, but I do believe what I've seen last year, is it going to be good enough? And I think that's the concern. And I wrote a column for VSiN that we always talk about all these new players coming in. But I think the reality of it is some of these guys, Patrick Mahomes, for example, everybody thinks he's great, and he is great, but he didn't play great last year. He had the worst year of his career last year. Nobody wants to talk about it, but he did. He's got to play better. Lamar Jackson's got to play better. Ryan Tannehill's got to play better. When those guys play better, then their teams will play better.
Michael, that brings me to my next question, which is kind of linked to Lamar Jackson. This time of year, everything's getting scrutinized, and Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, neither have turned up for training camp, but the burning issue obviously is the contracts. One scenario where Lamar Jackson contract seems to will get resolved, and nobody's in a kind of an immediate rush to get it resolved. Where Kyler Murray seems to be in a rush from day one of the offseason to get his contract. Who's going to blink first on that scenario? Is it going to be the Ravens because it's more amicable, or is it because the Cardinals will get more desperate because they don't want a situation where Kyler steps away and doesn't play?
Well, the Cardinals are desperate. I talked about this today on my pod. I mean, I don't understand what their rush is, really. I mean, I think Murray's rushing because he wants to make sure he gets locked into the guarantees, almost as if he doesn't know if he can continue to play well. Like, I don't think Murray's played great. Now, he's missed 2 games. He has not been healthy during the periods. And if you look at the faltering of the Cardinals at the end of the season, in the last 2 years, they have not played well. I mean, last year, last game of the season against Seattle, he did not play well. In the playoff game against the Rams, did not play well. I don't understand how you could be Steve Keim and turn around and give Murray 48, 50 million a year. Because when Rodgers got 50 and then Deshaun Watson got the 240 guarantee that came out to 45 per year, you're talking about a lot of money for a guy I don't know if I'm right on. Like, is he a bona fide superstar? Is he a top 5 player? The answer to that's no. Is he a top 10 player? He's a top 10 playmaker when he runs around like, with a road runner and it's beep, beep, and he's flying all over the place, right? But is he a top 10 quarterback? No. Do I want to pay 45? I don't know what their rush is. Lamar, I get a sense of patience with the Ravens. They want to pay him. They want to pay the 2019 Lamar. They don't want to pay the 2021 Lamar. So there's a little bit of a conflict there. I do think that'll work out. But when you commit to this deal in the 3rd year, you got 2 years left on the deal. Murray's never won a playoff game. He's dwindled towards the end of the year. And here's the other fact. He's not well liked. He's not an endearing player to the team. Watch the games and tell me Murray is really loved by his teammates, that they're all gathered. He's an indifferent player. And you give him all the money, what do you do to your locker room?
His body language is very off-putting at times.
Huh?
His body language is very off-putting at times.
I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
His body language isn't great when he's on the field.
Oh, no, his body language is horrible. It's horrible. And I think, to me, that sends a bad message. I mean, Draymond Green in the NBA was telling Steve Kerr, Steve, when your body language bad, it affects our team. So when we turn the ball over, stop acting like a 3-year-old, stop acting bad. Well, Murray acts bad all the time. He's like, AJ Green's ran 1 billion routes and he's over there criticizing him for the route. Make the throw. I don't get it. I don't get it. And the GM is putting all his chips in the middle of the table, which I think is professional suicide.
Talking about the NBA there, maybe by the time this goes out, the Celtics will be in the NBA Finals. Omar Khan is the new GM of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Are you watching the NBA Finals over there? Are you guys staying up for this?
I'm not. It's too late, Michael. Maybe game 6, game 7 when it gets really into it, but it's too late. It's at 4 or 5 in the morning and it goes on and on.
Last night's game, Michael, started at 2 a.m. here.
And they start here at 9 o'clock. I don't stay away. I get through the half, and then what I do is I go to YouTube in the morning and I watch the game on the YouTube. I don't look at the score until I see, I watch it. It's impossible. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's cool. Maybe we can do a game 7 live thing if we get to that point. We'll see what we can do. Omar Khan, new GM in Pittsburgh, obviously an internal hire, Michael. Do you think at any point the Steelers would have looked externally, or is it more just consistency for them?
I think I wrote about this in my book, my new book that'll come out. I don't know when, but I just actually finished it. But in the book, I talk a lot about Chuck Noll. And in 1969, Chuck Noll actually wasn't the number 1 candidate to become the Steelers head coach. Joe Paterno was. Paterno had just won the Orange Bowl. They beat Kansas, believe it or not, in the Orange Bowl, the great John Riggins Kansas team. And they offered Paterno the job. He accepted it, then he turned it down the next morning. They brought Chuck Noll in. And when they did that, Chuck Noll had a great ability to evaluate talent, really good. And he rebuilt that team. And he rebuilt how that organization operates. And they have operated that way since 69. And it's been really successful. They've won 51 games the last 5 years. They've been very successful. They've won more Super Bowls. Tomlin has been wonderful as the coach. Everybody knows their roles. The general manager doesn't speak out about the coach. So I think it makes sense. Omar will do a good job. He knows what he's strong in and he knows what he's weak in. They've hired this kid, Andy Waddell from the Eagles, to be the assistant GM. I think you'll see the pretty much the Steelers behave in the same way that they've always done.
Michael, one thing, and I'm really interested in your opinion as, somebody who's been there, done that in terms of the front office role. But Baker Mayfield, right? Ignore so they trade for Deshaun Watson. My feeling was if Mayfield wanted out, that his best play would have been show up day one and be there front and center, put the attention on him. But instead he stayed away entirely, which to me makes things a lot easier for the Browns. It puts them in the driving seat rather than Baker. Am I way off base on that, or what way? I'm just interested in your thoughts on that, and what do you think plays out with Baker?
Well, I think Baker should stay away. He's got 18 million reasons to stay away. I think the one part that you made a point about, if he comes in and gets hurt, they're on the hook for the 18 million. They're on the hook for the 18 million anyway. So that 18 million is really his leverage point. And so they can't take the deal away from him. They can't really screw around with him. So that 18 million is counting on their cap. They just did Clowney's deal, and they had to do a 5-year deal that reverts to a 1-year deal, basically, is what it is. So that pressure of that number is waiting on them. When they made the Watson deal, they really felt like they were going to get a second round pick for Mayfield. They were calling teams saying it'll take at least a 2 and a 3, and they got hung up on. And now they're fighting with this reality of what are we going to? Everybody wants them to pay the 18 million. Somebody will trade for Mayfield, not a lot, because there's really what's the value in trading for a guy whose contract's up? We don't have the cap. I mean, Carolina would trade for him tomorrow if the Browns would pay the 18 million, but they won't. They're trying to hardball that. And that's the holdup. You can't bring Mayfield in your locker room and say, Deshaun's here. Deshaun's in the OTA days. Whatever happens to him in suspension, it's his team now. You just gave him 240 million. He's in charge. Brissett knows his role. Mayfield comes in, it kind of upsets the kettle. You don't know what to do. And you can't really examine it. People say, well, they're going to keep him in case Watson gets suspended. I don't think that's the case. They got to get rid of him. They'll get rid of him, I think, sooner than later.
And in terms of the 49ers and Lance and Jimmy G, do you see a situation where they hang on to Jimmy, or do they end up trading him within the division because Seattle find out in camp that they actually need a QB?
Yeah. I don't think they'll trade him in the division if they could help it. I think they're surprised, the shoulder thing's holding the Jimmy G thing up. I mean, that's what's really, nobody knows the level of the shoulder injury. People are concerned about the shoulder. What do we do? How do we handle it? So that's what tying that up. They need his cap room. That the Deebo Samuel deal is tied up in a Jimmy G's paragraph. They don't want to pay 24 million for a guy that they're not going to start at quarterback. So they're going to have to do something, whether they cut him, which they don't want to do, or whether they try to trade him to somebody, but they're going to have to sell the shoulder is not a problem. And shoulder injuries for quarterbacks, especially their throwing shoulder, is problematic.
Michael, time and time again, we've heard GMs and head coaches say the player's not going to be traded, only to be traded a week or so later. And draft night, AJ Brown gets traded to the Eagles. The Titans team they were number 1 seed last year. Offensively, they were a bit inconsistent, and they've already given away their best player now. And with the Colts taking Matt Ryan, I mean, is that swung the balance in the division?
I just wrote about the Colts today for VSiN online at VSiN.com. Here are a couple things to know. The Colts are 14-10 since Frank Wright's been there in the AFC South. They have not dominated the teams that they play there. They've lost to some of those teams they shouldn't lose to. But I think Matt Ryan really makes them better. Tennessee, I always don't think they're good enough. Now, I think they're better on defense. But their offense, Burke's got to come through big time for them. And he can't stay on the field right now based on any of the OTA days. He's out of shape. He's not in great condition. They're having a hard time keeping him on the field. Their skill players are not the same. Not that Julio was very good last year, but, with Robert Woods coming off the knee injury, and then they don't really have a proven receiver like an A.J. Brown, it's going to put the pressure on Tannehill. And I think we saw Tannehill, he started to decline last year because of it. Now, they still have Henry, and they still play great defense. But I think there's a lot of questions about that. I think the Colts should be the favorite. I think the Colts, with the addition of Matt Ryan, I think he's going to be excellent. Jonathan Taylor is one of the best receiving backs in the league. He averages 9 yards a catch. Not many people realize that. I mean, Kamara averages 9.3. This guy averages 9. I mean, he's like Kamara in what he can do. He's not as flashy or as, makes your head spin, but he's very effective. And he caught 40 passes. Hines caught 40 passes. There's 80 catches there between the two running backs. So I think Ryan will help offensively. Defensively is their biggest concern. I know Eberflus got a head coaching job, and that's great for him. But last year, they were number one in the league in turning the ball over. They were great at that. They were not great in a lot of other areas. Think about this. They played 28 minutes and 12 seconds of defense on an average per game. And in 17 games, the offense ran 1,050 plays against them. Their offense had the ball 32 minutes and 40 seconds, and they only ran 1,057 plays. So the point of that is even though they're playing less defense, they're still giving up too many plays because they're shitty on third down. They don't get off the field on third down, and if they don't turn the ball over, you can move the ball on them. So the Colts' challenge is defensively, and I think with Gus Bradley and John Fox, I think that will help them.
Final round of questions, Michael. For a last one from me, we've seen, especially today, Coach Ron Rivera, really bigging up and talking about the new facilities for the Commanders and the ways that they're trying to improve the franchise. Yet we still have the big question mark around the ownership of Snyder. There's nothing more after the ownership meetings this week. When do you think and where do you think this ends up?
Unless they can prove he did something wrong, he'll still be the owner. I mean, look, he's still making a ton of money. They just spent $100 million for land in Virginia. They want to buy a stadium. They need to clean it up. I mean, that facility that they're working in right now goes back to when George Allen was the head coach in 1971. Though they've added on to it and all that, but it was a state-of-the-art facility when he built it in 71. They need a lot. They need an image, and their fan base has really declined. When I was a kid growing up here in this little beach town called Ocean City, I was a Redskin fan because of Vince Lombardi. That was the last team he worked for. And I loved them at RFK Stadium. One of my heroes in life is RFK because of RFK Stadium. But what he's done to that fan base is really almost criminal. He's ruined a great thing, and yet there's not going to be able to take it away from him.
Going from the NFC East to the AFC West, where you now have family ties, it's been quite the off season. Obviously, the Broncos bringing in Russell Wilson, but they have a first-time head coach in Hackett. The changes there with the Raiders, who made some very impressive signings. The Chargers have had a really impressive off season in terms of who they've brought in, and Staley's in his second year, and Andy Reid is Andy Reid. But as you pointed out earlier, Patrick Mahomes wasn't quite Patrick Mahomes last year. What way do you see the AFC West playing out, Michael?
I think that's a hard one. I think a lot of it, let's go Denver quickly here. Russell Wilson's got to use his legs more. He only rushed for 183 yards last year, which is the lowest he's ever done. He stopped moving around, and that lack of movement prohibited him from making the Russell Wilson cook you plays. I said that I wrote a column and I said that, last year he was a short order cook. He wasn't a gourmet chef. He was working in a diner here in Jersey, and he needs to change that. He needs to move. He needs to move around a little bit, so that's going to be the key for Denver, how well he plays. Look, he's going to play better than Drew Lock just by osmosis. So that's going to give them a huge lift, and they'll get some home field advantage that they haven't had lately because of their quarterbacking situation. I think the Chargers are still really a good team. Herbert just puts them in another category. Obviously, Mahomes I think he'll rebound. He'll play better. Will they miss Tyreek Hill? Yeah, I think they will miss him, but I think they'll be a difference team. Andy Reid's too good of a coach not to make the adjustment. And look, I think the Raiders, with Josh McDaniels, I think Carr will be really good. I think he'll continue to improve. I think the key for the Raiders is going to be, do they have enough defensive linemen to compete in a division? You need defensive linemen. I think it's wide open. I think a lot of it's going to come down to durability by those four teams. I mean, not very many divisions in the NFL have four quarterbacks that you could arguably say are four of the 10 best quarterbacks in the league.
Michael, every time we have you on, our viewing numbers shoot up. So I wouldn't want you to be on the show and not have an opportunity to talk about your new book. I know writing is a passion. Gridiron Genius is a fantastic book. But do you want to enlighten the people on this side of the world about the book in which you're writing at the moment?
Well, I'm writing a book. Really, I don't know the title of it. It's a journey through the Hall of Fame, essentially. So what I've tried to do in the book is I've written 10 chapters about the NFL, about the coaching trees in the NFL. There's 5 coaching trees that really most every coach comes from. And then I've written about the influences of the NFL, the TV, the draft, trades, those kind of things. That's 10 chapters. And then I rank the top 100 players. And every player has a specific write-up on why I ranked them. And it's not strong points, weak points, summary. It's not that. It's a story that I try to tell about the player, whether I was involved, whether I've watched the player, because, one thing about being old, I've seen a lot of these guys, and so, when I was a 24-year-old kid, I watched Ronnie Lott. I watched Joe Montana practice. I didn't know what the hell I was watching, but I watched them. And so now that I can reflect back on it. So that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a book about a journey through the Hall of Fame and try to give fans some perspective of the whole game.
Michael, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show, and the support that you've given us since we've started out has been impeccable. We cannot thank you enough, man, and we wish you all the very, very best with your new book and the ventures that you do, and hope to have you on maybe if not before the season, during the season. And I'll link your socials below, and enjoy the rest of the off season. It's going to get very busy very quick.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys.
They're coming to the Aviva Stadium this August to face the Nebraska Cornhuskers football team in the Aer Lingus College Football Classic.
The Aer Lingus Classic is just a few months away.
Everybody's been waiting for this.
It's going to be great. We're looking forward to getting everyone over.
That we are going to see a football game in Dublin.
Well, a remarkable trip and an opportunity coming up.
Go Wildcats!
Go Big Red.